I'm Avery Lancaster, 32, and last weekend, I watched my father raise a glass to his legacy without even saying my name. 4 years since I set foot at the Lancaster estate. 4 years since I stopped answering their PR calls, their holiday invitations, and every thinly veiled attempt to pull me back under their brand. And yet, there it was. An invitation. Heavy cardstock. My stepmother Margaret's perfect handwriting on the front. Like a dare disguised as decorum. When I arrived, my name wasn't on the guest list. Not on the welcome board. Not in the seating plan. Not even whispered over champagne flutes. But before they could finish their speeches. Before Robert could toast Grant as the future of the family. They heard something else. A low rumble over the Atlantic. The sound of my jet. Descending over their perfect garden party. Carrying my name on its side in 12-inch chrome letters. And for the first time in years, they all had to look up. If you've ever been erased by the people who were supposed to love you, if you've ever been treated like a footnote in your own story, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from as I explain exactly how I stopped waiting for their table and built my own. She let the thick pressed envelope rest against her fingertips, its weight somehow heavier than the cardstock could justify. The script on the front, Margaret's elegant, looping hand, had once addressed birthday cards, college care packages, even those neatly written letters that stopped arriving once Avery declined the offer to work for the family trust. Now, it summoned her back. Through the loft's floor-to-ceiling windows, warm spring sunlight filtered across polished concrete floors and cast pale reflections onto the chrome kitchen island. Outside, the hum of Soho was muffled beneath the double-glazed glass. New York on a Saturday morning in full bloom. But inside, silence reigned, taut as piano wire. Chloe stood across from her, arms crossed over a dark green blouse, espresso cooling beside her untouched. "So," she said, her voice carrying the bite of caffeine and candor. "Are we setting fire to it? Framing it, or RSVPing yes?" Avery smiled faintly. "It's not an RSVP. It's a reconnaissance mission." "That's a yes," Chloe replied, already opening the laptop that had been resting beside her. "I've got 2 alternate outfits pressed, 1 security briefing drafted, and the comms team on alert in case your last name gets used for PR without consent. Again." Avery didn't laugh, but her lips twitched. The last time her father's people tried to drop her name into a press release, it was to suggest she'd cut her teeth at Lancaster Holdings before spinning off Orion Labs. In truth, Robert Lancaster had once dismissed her startup as a sandbox phase over cocktails at some benefits gala. Said it with a smile, said it within earshot of a Forbes reporter. She hadn't corrected him then. She didn't need to. Now, Orion Labs was valued at $1.2 billion. Its AI-driven infrastructure had been quietly acquired by multiple Fortune 500s. And unlike Lancaster Holdings, it wasn't bleeding relevance. Avery let the envelope fall onto the counter. "You think he actually wants me there?" she asked. Chloe tilted her head. "Number, but he wants something. That kind of man never reaches unless he's trying to pull the rug." Avery remembered her high school graduation. How everyone had stood under that white canvas tent in Connecticut, her cap and gown pressed, her hair curled just right. And then, when the family photos came out, she'd found herself cropped from the group shot. Robert's explanation had been simple. "We just wanted it clean. Just the core. As if she hadn't been blood." "Whatever this is," Chloe added, "it smells like damage control. Or bait." Avery turned, walking across the room to where her phone lay charging. She tapped once, then pressed the call button. "Ms. Lancaster," said the voice on the other end. "Schedule the jet," she said. "Hamptons, 1 passenger." There was a pause. "Understood. Timing?" "Tomorrow morning." She hung up and looked down at the invitation again, lying like a dare on the granite. She whispered almost to herself, "Let's see if they remember I exist." The driveway shimmered with Bentleys and Benzes, but Avery's name wasn't even on the guest board. She stepped out of the black SUV with the ease of someone who'd memorized how to command a room, only to realize this wasn't her room anymore, if it ever had been. A valet approached hesitantly, not quite meeting her eyes, then took the keys with a stiff nod. No warm greeting. No, welcome back, Miss Lancaster. Just protocol. The early afternoon sun burned through a sea salt breeze. Beyond the gravel circle, the Lancaster estate sprawled like a memory she never asked to relive. Blinding stone walls, lattice windows, ocean wind rippling through linen canopies, and hedges trimmed within a quarter-inch of perfection. Avery adjusted the sunglasses on her face, scanned the ornate welcome board propped beside the walkway. Names etched in golden calligraphy. Grant Lancaster and fiancé. Mr. and Mrs. Ward from Greenwich. Senator Halberg. Her own name was conspicuously absent. Not a typo. Not an oversight. A message. Chloe's voice rang quietly in her memory. Worst case scenario? They seat you next to the staff table. Then we smile, and we leave. Avery's heels crunched along the garden path. She didn't look toward the main patio where guests clustered in warm-toned linen and summer suits. Instead, a young staff member, barely older than a college intern, waved her gently toward a peripheral row of stone seats. Flanked by hydrangeas and facing the Atlantic, but so far from the head table it may as well have been another zip code. She smiled politely, nodded, and sat. Alone. Across the patio, Robert Lancaster stood with his back to the ocean, brandy in hand, posture impeccable. His silver hair caught the sun as he laughed at something an oil executive said. Next to him, Grant moved like a shadow, shaking hands, clapping shoulders, polished, smug, practiced charisma in every nod, someone who had grown into the heir they always wanted. Avery sipped still water from a glass so chilled it fogged against the air. From her vantage point, she could see them all, but none of them seemed to see her. Margaret appeared briefly, her pastel dress floating as she moved toward the flower arrangements. Her gaze flitted past Avery, almost, but then pivoted as if distracted. Not hostility, just absence. Like Avery had been carefully filed away and misplaced in the family archive. A guest wandered too close to the edge of the patio and blinked when he saw her. Avery Lancaster? He said with pleasant surprise. Didn't know you'd be here. Orion Labs, right? Before she could answer, Robert's voice sliced in. Casual but audible. Oh, that's old news. She's doing some, I thing now. Hobby projects. The man chuckled awkwardly and retreated. Avery didn't flinch. Instead, she turned her attention back to the waves, her expression unreadable. She didn't need their applause. She didn't even need their acknowledgement. But they had made a mistake thinking she needed nothing at all. Her phone buzzed once, barely a tremor on the stone table beside her. Jet ETA. 11 minutes. Press received the memo. C.R. Avery exhaled slowly, controlled. She looked up toward the clinking glasses, the performative toasts, the perfectly orchestrated lies. Robert raised his drink high. To my children, he said, voice resonant. Especially Grant, my legacy. Avery stood up silently, heels clicking against the stone, leaving her untouched plate behind. The low rumble of jet engines carried across the shoreline. Subtle, until it wasn't. The sound grew. Not loud, but undeniable. A vibration under the skin, threaded into the dusk wind rolling off the Atlantic. Guests turned their heads from wine glasses and laughter, their idle chatter about midterms and mergers dissolving as they watched Avery's silhouette slip past the trellised archway and disappear into a waiting black car. No one stopped her. No one knew what to say. Inside the vehicle, Avery sat with the precision of someone settling into a strategy rather than a seat. She didn't look back. Not at the estate, not at the people, not at the ocean that used to mean summer and safety. Just forward. Focused. The drive to East Hampton Airport was short. efficient. The sunset pooled across the tarmac in ribbons of gold and coral, touching everything but softening nothing. Under that light, her jet landed with quiet finality, sleek matte silver trimmed in obsidian blue. Along its side, in crisp typography, Orion Labs, A. Lancaster. No initials, no mystery, just name and proof. Chloe was already waiting near the boarding stairs, wind tossing her blazer slightly as she scanned the sky and the blinking notification stream on her phone. She barely needed to look up. "They've started whispering," she said as Avery stepped out. "One of the guests filmed your exit, captioned it 'Ice Queen Takes Flight.' Over 50,000 views in 8 minutes. I tagged it." Avery didn't smile, but something in her shoulders eased. Chloe handed her the phone. "Victor Chen wants to talk." Avery took it, pressed the receiver to her ear. Her voice stayed level. "Victor." A pause, then a smooth baritone from halfway across the Pacific. "They offered $1.68 billion, cash heavy. Exclusive licensing. Final offer, they say." Avery glanced up as the hatch of the jet opened. Her initials gleamed under the light, reflected in the polished black of her sunglasses. "What are you countering with?" Victor asked. She stepped onto the first stair, then paused. "Nothing," she said. Silence on the line. "We don't compete," she added. "We redefine." Chloe nodded without needing the context. She'd already emailed the press pack, a sleek 2-page PDF detailing Orion Labs' most recent AI framework for autonomous adaptive learning environments, their Series D valuation jump, and the upcoming Tech Summit keynote. Headlined not by any Lancaster, but by Avery herself. Within seconds, the Wall Street Journal pinged back. "Received. Confirming your lead as exclusive for embargo release." Meanwhile, back at the estate, the glow of iPhones and cocktail napkins reflected in confused, then stunned faces. One screen lit up with the image of a jet disappearing into the Hamptons sky. Another screen showed a reshared story captioned, "Avery Lancaster just left her dad's birthday party. On a jet with her name on it." Grant's smile faltered. Robert lowered his drink. Margaret finally turned her head toward the empty seat near the catering tent, only to find it cold and forgotten. By then, the jet had already taxied. Inside the cabin, Avery set the phone down. Outside, the sun slipped below the horizon. But for her, the light was only beginning. While the Lancasters were slicing cake, Avery was slicing through billion-dollar terms. The clock read 6:32 a.m. Morning sun filtered weakly through the shaded glass walls of the Midtown suite, casting long lines across scattered NDAs and black coffee mugs. Avery didn't glance at the skyline. She'd already seen it from higher floors. Victor Chen sat across from her, his shirt rolled to the elbows, fingers pinched on the bridge of his nose. 2 hours of deliberation hadn't drained him, but Grant Lancaster's name on the documents had clearly left an aftertaste. "I can't believe he thought we wouldn't notice the recycled pitch deck," Victor said. "Same graphs, same damn font." Ethan Patel slid a tablet toward him. He even reused the performance projections from your Q3 roadmap, just relabeled them as Technova Disruption Initiatives. Victor scrolled, his lips tightening. He's not even subtle. Chloe leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "He's a Lancaster. They're used to getting things without earning them." Avery didn't respond. Her gaze was on the document in front of her, an acquisition outline, stripped of corporate drama and posturing. She turned a page, then looked up. "Our offer," she said, tapping the number, "is $1.62 billion, not the highest, but it comes with 3 things Technova won't offer: total team retention, guaranteed lab autonomy, and a 5-year founder-led vision plan." Victor exhaled slowly. "You're betting that culture beats cash." "No," she said, sliding the contract closer to him. "I'm betting on what you told me in Tokyo, that you're sick of being bought and gutted." Ethan's voice was low but precise. "Our lawyers have reviewed every clause. We've buried a confidentiality clause that severs Grant's advisory ties if Synaptech signs with Orion. No conflicts. No whispers. Chloe stepped forward, held out an envelope. We've timed the press cycle. You sign now, the news goes out at noon. You get to walk into the tech summit tomorrow with the power of momentum, not apology. Victor hesitated. Yesterday, Chloe added, you saw how she moves. Quiet, surgical. You don't have to like revenge, just know it works. Victor leaned back, silent for a moment. Then he pulled the pen from his blazer pocket. A slow breath, a signature. It was done. Avery didn't blink. She simply reached for her phone and drafted a single-line email. Typed, sent. Subject: none body. Good luck scaling Technova without your engine. To Grant.Lancaster at Technova.ai Victor Rose. We'll get the joint PR finalized by 10. Let's shake the valley awake. He left with Ethan, their footsteps vanishing into the hallway. Only then did Chloe break the silence. You didn't even flinch. I'm not here to flinch, Avery said, eyes still on the document. On Robert Lancaster's personal calendar, retrieved by one of Chloe's discreet back channels, there was a red line through today's noon appointment. Lunch while Synaptech. Cancelled. Avery tapped her nail lightly against the tabletop, then finally looked up at Chloe. Now we let the silence do the rest. The first thing Robert read that morning wasn't a birthday card. It was the Wall Street Journal headline. From patio to powerhouse, Avery Lancaster's Orion secures historic Synaptech acquisition. The subhead was worse. Sources confirm Technova was outbid not in dollars, but in dignity. The print trembled faintly as he gripped the newspaper tighter. Bone china clinked on polished oak. Across the breakfast room, light filtered through frosted glass, illuminating the floral etchings on the porcelain teapot Margaret had imported from Kyoto. Nobody said a word. He turned the page, pretending to read on, but the damage was already done. Margaret sat to his left, her eyes unfocused, a spoon hovering above her untouched yogurt. A strand of her usually perfect hair had come loose near her temple, and she hadn't bothered to tuck it back. Across from them, Grant slumped behind his phone, scrolling faster than reading, eyes darting from one headline to the next. She made a show of it, Robert muttered. Grant looked up, startled. What? That jet. That timing. The press kits. That wasn't a business deal. It was theater. Grant scoffed. Tech moves fast. It'll blow over. Press flocks to drama. Next week they'll be on to some other woman in a pantsuit. Margaret's head tilted, slowly. Don't be cruel, she said. Her voice wasn't sharp, but it was not absent anymore either. Grant blinked. I'm not being cruel. I'm being rational. No, she replied, eyes steady on her plate. You're being exactly like your father. Robert's head snapped toward her, but she didn't look at him. Instead, she seemed lost in a memory. When she was 7, Margaret said, she built a telescope out of recycled glass in a laundry detergent bottle. Said she wanted to see farther than the moon. You laughed, Robert. Said no one funds dreams that don't have patents. She was a child, he muttered. She was brilliant, Margaret replied, sharper now. And we kept cropping her out of our lives, one holiday photo at a time. The silence landed heavy. From the hallway, the sound of someone clearing dishes gave them an excuse to look away. But then a new sound took its place. The familiar ding of a breaking news alert. Grant's screen lit up. A senator's tweet. Avery Lancaster's Orion Labs might be the first clean code AI suite I trust. I missed the train. Never again. Grant snorted. That guy barely knows how to log into his Senate email. Robert didn't answer. He was staring at his tablet now, at a news banner crawling across the bottom of a live stream. Chloe Ramirez, Orion COO, joins Forbes Tech this morning to discuss the Synaptech acquisition. Chloe's face filled the screen. Elegant, razor-sharp, and unapologetic. For us, she was saying, this wasn't about money. It was about alignment. We don't scale for applause. We scale because the world needs better systems. Margaret reached for her phone. Slowly. Her hands weren't steady. She opened the contacts list, scrolled to Avery, paused, hovered her thumb over the call icon. Robert looked up. "What are you doing?" Margaret's eyes never left the screen. "She didn't fade," she whispered. She rose, and we failed to rise with her. Across the table, Robert said nothing, and in the center of the Lancaster estate, where silence had once been power, it now rang like shame. The invitation read, "Let's talk." But this time, Avery chose the restaurant and the terms. Le Botaniste was tucked quietly off Madison Avenue, a green-tiled haven with fern-lined walls and soft acoustic jazz. The hostess led her to a small marble table by the window, already reserved in her name. No fanfare, no last name needed. Just Avery. She arrived early. Not out of anxiety, but intention. She wanted to sit in her own time, feel the calm she'd earned. She ordered jasmine tea and let the steam curl between her fingers as she scrolled briefly through her phone. A text from Chloe blinked at the top of the screen. "You good?" Avery didn't type a word. Instead, she lifted her cup, took a photo, tea, sunlight, quiet, and sent it. Then she put the phone away. Margaret arrived 3 minutes late, her movements tentative, almost apologetic. Gone was the usual heels and Hermes command. She wore soft neutrals, a silk scarf loose at the neck. When she saw Avery, she smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Thank you for coming," Margaret said, sitting. Avery nodded. "You asked." Silence lingered, broken only by the rattle of cups as a server brought a second pot. Margaret wrapped her fingers around the handle, then let go. "I've been trying to figure out how to begin." "You just did," Avery said, voice gentle. "You showed up." Margaret's throat moved as she swallowed. "I thought I was protecting the family," she began. "When we cut you out of certain decisions, certain photos, I thought it would make things easier. Neater." Avery sipped her tea. "I know that's not an excuse," Margaret continued, eyes cast down. "But I want you to know, I see now, what you've built, who you are." Avery leaned back slightly. She didn't flinch, didn't rush in to soften the silence. "I didn't build Orion to prove you wrong," she said evenly. "I built it because you stopped defining me." Margaret looked up. Her eyes glistened. "I wish," she began, voice breaking. "I wish I had asked you what you saw. Instead, I only told you what I didn't." Avery exhaled slowly, not out of anger, but release. It wasn't vindication she felt. It was clarity. She reached for her wallet and laid her card beside the receipt. Margaret blinked. "You don't have to—" "I know," Avery interrupted, standing. "But I want to." She pulled on her coat, adjusted the collar, then turned back with one final sentence. "Next time, don't ask me to sit at the table," she said. "Ask me if I want to be in the room." Margaret didn't answer. She just watched. Avery stepped outside into the warm May sunlight. Her phone lit up as she walked. Subject: "Let's talk next. Venture from Anderson and Crow VC Group body. Saw the Orion move. We're listening." She smiled. No seat needed. She built the whole room. I didn't look back when I stepped out of Le Botaniste. The sun was warm against my skin, the sidewalk alive with movement, but inside I felt still. Not frozen, just complete. My mother's voice still lingered behind me, somewhere between regret and too late. I hadn't come for closure. I hadn't come for forgiveness. I came to see for myself if their absence still haunted me. And when she finally said the words I'd waited a decade to hear, something in me didn't crumble. It didn't ignite either. It just settled. Maybe that's what healing looks like. Not some grand explosion of forgiveness, but a quiet decision to stop carrying their silence like proof of my worth. The last few years of building Orion Labs had never been about revenge, even if the world assumed so. Let them assume. Let them write their think pieces about a daughter scorned and tech's most elegant retaliation. They can speculate all they want. I know the truth. I didn't build a jet with my name on it to fly over their heads. I built it because walking through their front door never felt like mine. So I made one that was. People talk about power as if it's loud, as if it requires slamming doors, boardroom showdowns, courtroom confessions. Mine came quietly, in the way I placed the check on the table without a word, in the way my press release hit inboxes before my father had even opened his birthday card, in the way Grant had to explain to a boardroom full of men why Synaptech pulled out and named me their future. Even Chloe, bless her strategist soul, had asked, back in the early days, "What's the goal here, Avery?" Prove them wrong? And I'd said without pause, "No, just prove them irrelevant." And now, I've done it. Not with cruelty, not with vengeance, but with vision. I didn't outplay them. I outgrew them. Robert will spin it. He'll find a way to make it about miscommunication, about family complexities. He'll smile through luncheons and tell new interns how proud he is of his daughter, the CEO. But he won't say my name the way he says Grant's. That's okay. Because the world knows it now. And Margaret? Maybe she'll call again. Maybe she won't. But when she hovered over the call button that morning, I knew something in her cracked. And if she ever really listens, to me, to herself, I hope she understands one thing. I never needed her permission to become. I needed her love, and I learned how to live without it. So here I am, stepping into a new season. Not to escape them, but because I've already passed them. And just as I reached for the door of the car, my phone lit up again. Another VC firm. Another pitch. Another let's talk. Let them come. I'm not waiting to be invited anymore. Some victories don't come with applause. They arrive in the silence that follows being underestimated. Avery Lancaster didn't raise her voice or seek revenge. She simply refused to let the people who erased her define her. Justice, when quiet and deliberate, echoes even louder. Like a tide pulled back for years, the truth returned with force. And grace. Because no dynasty is too powerful to crumble once the one they cast out learns to fly. Thank you, truly, for staying with me through this story. If you've ever sat alone at a family gathering, pretending not to notice the empty seat they left for you, if you've ever opened an invitation and wondered if it was sent with sincerity, or just out of obligation, if you've ever lowered your voice, second-guessed your worth, or stayed silent because speaking up felt like more trouble than it was worth, I hope this story reminded you of something important. You are not invisible. You were never the problem. And being left out of their table doesn't mean you can't build your own. This journey, through silence, rejection, and quiet victories, taught me that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is grow so far beyond their narrative that one day, when they finally look up, they realize they're no longer the ones setting the terms of your life. I won't pretend the road here was easy. There were days I questioned everything, nights when the loneliness weighed more than any success could balance, and moments, many moments, where I wondered if closure was even possible. But here's what I've learned. Closure doesn't always come in the form of apologies. Sometimes it comes in the form of progress. Sometimes it's the soft decision to let their absence hurt less, and your own voice matter more. To everyone out there fighting silent battles with family, legacy, or even just your own self-doubt, I see you. I understand. And if this story resonated with you in any way, if you found a piece of yourself in these words, I would be honored if you left a comment below and shared your story, or just where you're watching from. Because you never know who else is scrolling, feeling the same way, waiting for a reminder that they're not alone. Please like and subscribe if you want to hear more stories like this. Stories about resilience, reclaiming identity, and finding quiet power after being overlooked for far too long. Your support means more than you know. Every like, every comment, every shared video helps these stories reach others who might need them too. So from the bottom of my heart, Thank you for being here, for listening, for staying, for choosing yourself. And remember, you don't need their seat at the table. You were always meant to build the room. I'm Maddie Carter, 28, and for 19 years I thought working harder would make me visible. It didn't. They celebrated Sierra for every stumble she turned into drama, gave her standing ovations for tears, framed her button art like it belonged in a gallery. Me? Straight A's, National Science Awards, early acceptance to the gifted program. At best, a distracted good job. At worst, forgotten under expired Olive Garden coupons. But the real breaking point? The night I found a $20,000 kitchen remodel with my name on the payment authorization. My silence, cashed in, without my consent, without a thank you. Just a signature forged under family convenience. They thought I'd stay quiet. They thought I'd keep wiring money every time they cried loud enough. They didn't realize I wasn't a daughter anymore. I was a creditor. And I had receipts. Before I tell you how I turned their lies into evidence, tell me where you're watching from. And hit subscribe, if you've ever been the forgotten one. Until the day they needed your bank account more than your love. The memory returns like clockwork. Always quiet. Always precise. Sierra's birthday was a parade of squeals, frosting, and velvet ribbons. Mine? A hallway of muffled yawns and a blinking red digital alarm clock. I used to wonder if the house remembered it better than they did. Maybe the creaking floorboard in the hallway whispered, "Happy birthday," when no one else did. That winter, I brought home my first straight A report card, slid it across the table during dinner, heart hammering. Susan barely glanced up from her soup. "Pass the salt,"